This happened when I was 16. My friend John had a cabin on a lake about an hour away. There were 7 or 8 of us that went there for spring break one year. This was late March in the Midwest, so it was still pretty cold. Since most of the nearby properties were summer cabins, there weren't many people in the area at this time. My friend's parents weren't up there either, so we had the run of the place. We liked to have a good time, and it wasn't uncommon for us to bend the rules a little bit, if you know what I mean. We had a campfire down by the water one night, and we were all feeling pretty good. A couple of the guys started messing around, which turned into them chasing each other around the yard. Then somehow this evolved into this hide-and-seek type game that we were all playing. Some of us would hide and try to get away while others chased us. The yard was a little small for this game, and it quickly spilled over into the next-door neighbor's yard. Their yard was a lot darker, and there were a lot more trees and bushes and stuff to hide behind. I ran over to the far side of the neighbor's yard and was hiding behind some bushes, watching for a chaser to come over. Most of the guys were more over in John's yard, but I saw my friend Paul run over and hide behind a nearby tree. I was looking around, just scanning the area, when I looked up at the neighbor's house. You could kind of see into the house through a huge window. It was dark inside, but there was a tiny bit of light, like from a clock or nightlight or something. I wasn't sure, but I thought I saw a figure standing in the back of the room. I tried to focus more. It was hard to tell, but it looked like the silhouette of a person standing there. I whispered to Paul, "Hey, do you see someone standing inside the neighbor's house?" He asked, "Where?" And I told him where to look. He said he didn't see it. He was at a different angle though, so I told him to come over to where I was. He ran over and I told him where to look again. We both saw it and got a little freaked out. We ran back over to John's yard and found the rest of the guys. We all stopped for a minute, and Paul and I told him that we saw the neighbor in the window. John looked at us sort of confused and said, "What neighbor? There's no one up here." I told him, "The neighbor next door. We were just over there hiding and we saw him." John confirmed again that no one was there. He went on to say that they lived like 6 hours away and only come up 2 or 3 times during the summer. We were all starting to question who was in there then. Someone suggested that we all go take a look. After all, we had some extra courage flowing. We slowly walked over but couldn't see much. We were too far away. So we slowly moved closer to the house. We eventually got right up by the deck, and I heard someone say, "Let's go up to the window." We still didn't see anything. Then, all of a sudden, a man peeked out of a doorway in the back. You could clearly see the movement. It was too dark to see what he looked like though, other than the fact that he was bald. You could only see his head and shoulders. We all jumped back and took off running back to the cabin. We all got pretty scared, funny enough. John kept saying that no one is supposed to be in there and his neighbor is definitely not bald. We thought about calling the police, but eventually decided not to since we might get ourselves into trouble. We got back in town the next day, and John said that he told his parents about it when he got back home, and they apparently called the owners. Apparently they went up there a few days later to make sure everything was alright. There was nobody there, but I guess it looked like someone had been living there for at least a little while. There was a bunch of trash in one of the bedrooms, and the blankets were all messed up. Hopefully, they were only looking for some shelter. Last summer, I went to an amusement park with my younger sister and her boyfriend. I'm a guy in my mid-30s. It was a Sunday evening, and we were planning on leaving the park a little early. We all had to work the following morning, and we had a 3-hour drive home. My sister and her boyfriend wanted to go on one last ride, but I decided to pass because it wasn't one of my favorites. I told them to go ahead without me, and I'd meet them near the entrance when they were done. I walked to the front of the park and sat down on a bench while I waited. I'll admit I really enjoy people watching in places like this, so I was just watching everyone pass by. After a couple minutes, I saw a woman and a young boy approaching, I assume a mother and her son. The boy was probably around 8 years old, and he stuck out to me because he had on this bright outfit. It reminded me of something I would have worn back in the 80s when I was a kid. There was a restroom directly in front of me, probably 30 feet away or so. As the two got closer, I could hear the woman say something like, "Now wait for me right outside the bathroom when you're done," and they headed for the restrooms. It was kind of busy, so people were going in and out. I continued looking around, and maybe a minute later, I noticed the boy walk out of the restroom. but I got a little curious when I saw a man right behind him, close enough to where it looked like they were together. He looked to be in his 50s, was a little scruffy looking, and for some reason I remember he was wearing Velcro shoes. They both stopped for a few moments near the entrance, and I could see that the man was talking to the boy. I couldn't make out exactly what they were saying, but I thought I heard the boy say something like, "But she told me to wait right here." The man said something else, and then he put his hand on the boy's shoulder. He appeared to be guiding him towards the entrance of the park as they started walking. There was definitely not a man with the two of them when they were approaching the restrooms. I know for a fact that I heard the woman tell the boy to wait, and I didn't see her come out of the restroom yet. Sirens started going off in my head, and I just sort of reacted. I jumped out of my seat and ran over and put myself in front of the man. For context, I'm 6'2" and 180 pounds. Not the biggest guy in town, but I work out often. I said something like, "Whoa, whoa, whoa, what's up? Where are you going?" The man looked surprised and responded, "What? We're leaving." I said, "Hold up. I know his mom's in the bathroom and he was supposed to wait for her here. Who are you?" Before he even had time to respond, I looked down at the boy and asked, "Hey, do you know this guy?" He looked up at me with wide eyes and just barely shook his head no. Then I heard a woman yelling, "Grayson? Grayson?" I looked up to see the boy's mother running over and the man took off sprinting towards the exit. I waited for her to get to us. Then I turned towards the exit and started yelling, "Stop that man!" I ran towards the gate where I saw some workers and yelled that the man had tried to kidnap a child. The man had disappeared into the parking lot at this point, but one of the workers put a call out on the radio. A short time later, park security found him and he was later arrested. I stayed long enough to give my statement to the police. The woman and her son were pretty upset over the situation, as you can imagine. I explained the whole thing to her and how I happened to notice them while I was waiting to leave. She kept thanking me over and over again and saying, "Oh my God, you're an angel." The boy said the man approached him in the bathroom, telling him that his mom had to go out to the car and wanted him to take him out there. Who knows what would have happened had I not noticed this whole thing. I'm just really glad I decided not to go on the last ride that day. During my senior year of high school, me and a group of friends went to Panama City Beach, Florida for spring break. There were 10 of us and we stayed at the east end of the strip that ran along the ocean. One night, we decided to go meet up with some girls we knew from school who were staying a couple miles west. There was a lot more action that way because all the big hotels and clubs were down there. The strip would get packed with people and cars at night, so it was fun to walk, even though it was kind of far. Later in the night, the group got split up and I was with my friend Eric. This was just before everyone had cell phones, so we didn't have any way of contacting the group, so we decided to head back to the hotel. We made it most of the way back, and by this time it was around 4 a.m. The street was pretty quiet now, especially the closer we got to our hotel. As Eric and I were talking, I thought I heard someone sort of yell something. I looked up and a vehicle had just passed us on the road. I just assumed it was some people being loud in the car, but I remembered that it was a black SUV that had all the windows tinted. This stuck out to me because I wondered how I could hear anyone if the windows were up. We continued to walk, and a minute later I heard a vehicle approaching from behind us. When it was passing us, I looked over and it looked like the same SUV that had just went by in the opposite direction. They continued a little further, and then I saw them make a U-turn and head back towards us. I told Eric to check out the SUV because it had driven past us a couple times. He said he noticed too, and he told me to just stay cool. They were getting close to passing us again, and you could tell that they started to slow down a bit. As they went by, we looked over and all the windows started to roll down. When they got low enough, we could see that there were at least 5 people in the car all wearing masks. I got a really uneasy feeling at this point as they kept driving for a little ways. We both turned around to see if they'd keep going. They made it another 100 feet or so, and the brake lights turned on. I said to Eric, "Dude, should we run?" He said, "No, not yet. Walk towards the building." I was starting to freak out at this point, but somehow Eric was a lot more level-headed than I was. We were right in front of a building that had a few storefronts, obviously closed at this hour. We walked diagonally across the parking lot towards the corner of the building. Once we reached the corner, the vehicle wouldn't be able to see us anymore. When we were about 10 feet away, we could see the vehicle make another U-turn, and we heard the tires squeal and the engine get loud as they took off towards us. Eric said calmly, "Just keep walking, don't make it obvious." I wasn't sure what he was planning. We took another few steps and we reached the corner of the building. That's when he yelled, "Go!" We took off sprinting to the back of the building between the dumpster and turned around the next corner. It was really dark back there with a lot of bushes and stuff. We turned one more corner and we reached the front of the building on the other side. There was some landscaping and trees that separated the property from the next lot. We peeked around the corner of the building right as the SUV came to a stop on the other side where we just were. The door swung open and the men rushed out. I heard one of them say, "Don't let them get away." As they went out of view behind the building, we bolted across the street, knowing that they'd be looking for us on the other side. We scurried over behind a short concrete wall that partially enclosed the parking lot. The wall had a row of hedges on top of it. We hid behind it and watched the men across the street for a minute. We saw silhouettes of the men searching around in the shadows near the back of the building. One of them stepped into the light from the corner we had just ran from. He glanced around quickly and stepped back out of view a couple seconds later. We could see that he had something in his hand. It looked like maybe a tire iron or crowbar or something. We decided not to stick around any longer and we sprinted behind the condos we were in front of and got out to the beach. We ran along the water until we got back to our hotel, which wasn't too far away. I don't know what they were planning to do, but I'm glad that we got away.